Today, the local soldier accused of a deadly rampage in Afghanistan met face-to-face with his Seattle-based lawyer for the first time. John Henry Brown flew from Seattle to Kansas and met with 38-year-old Robert Bales at Fort Leavenworth. He'd spoken with him on the phone before, but this was their first face-to-face. Brown, over the past few days, has offered some explanations as to how this man, who has a great military record for the last 11 years, could be accused of something so terrible. He said that Bales was against being deployed to Afghanistan this last time and has questioned claims that his mental capacities are not all there. And joining me now is Stephen Carpenter Jr., a lawyer whose practice focuses solely on military cases. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in. If this was your client and you met with him today for the first time, what would this initial meeting be about?
Well, I think the first thing you need to focus in on is basically trying to figure out what makes this guy tick. You need to know a little bit about his family, a little bit about his career in the military, how his career has been going, to try to determine whether or not you'd be able to really help this guy and look him in the eye and then really kind of test his sincerity to see if there's something you might be able to do in what's a horrific case.
And Brown described this meeting today as extremely emotional. I don't believe that anybody doubts that, but is some of that posturing, do you believe, for the media?
I don't think there's any question that there's posturing going on. This case is in the limelight. There are folks across the country that are interested in this case. They're watching your show, they're reading the morning paper, they're reading about this on the internet and blogs, et cetera, et cetera. It's got a bunch of high-profile attention. The President of the United States is interested in this case, as is Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, so I don't think there's any question that there is a lot of interest in this case, and there has got to be posturing that's going on by this attorney, which makes sense because that's the only way of counteracting this perception that's being created of his client.
You're saying that's part of the job?
It's part of the job, and I think he's obviously very well equipped to do that job.
And this lawyer immediately came out and said a few things. One, that his client was not having marital problems. That had been reported. He also made it sound like he may have snapped because of 4 war deployments. That leads us to believe this is the line of defense. Can we go with that?
I think that's exactly where he's going to go. In the military process, there's something called a sanity board, whereby there are going to be some psychiatrists and some neurologists that will take a look at this accused to determine whether or not there was any kind of snapping going on.
John Henry Brown is clearly a very qualified attorney. He's handled a lot of high-profile cases. He has not handled many military cases. Are there pitfalls that he may endure because he doesn't have that experience in a military court, which is different from a civilian court?
There are some significant differences, and he is a bit of a fish out of water. However, I don't think there's any question that he is a great lawyer in the sense of his ability to handle issues as it relates to the media. He is going to have at least 2 or 3 trial defense lawyers of the United States Army, uniform members, who will be able to get him up to speed. So, again, there's no doubt that he's going to have to learn as he's going along here, but I have no doubt that he's well equipped to do the job and do the absolute best he can for his client.
Do you expect this case to go to trial, and what sort of access will the public have to those proceedings?
The case will go to trial. The way it works in the military is the case is begun with something called an Article 32 hearing. It's the equivalent of a grand jury proceeding with the exception of it's adversarial. So I'm sure you would like to be there, as would other people of the national and local media, and you will have an opportunity to look in at this pretrial hearing where witnesses are going to be called. I doubt his client's going to testify, but it's going to be an opportunity for this psychiatric issue related to PTSD to be played out in front of the national media, and for him to argue that whether or not his client did something that was horrific is something that's going to have to be decided, but related to that is the fact that his client was a changed man after 4 deployments, and obviously he's going to play that to the hilt.
Much more to come, and the world is watching. Stephen Carpenter Jr., thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. Marty, back to you.